Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. So today we're checking out another video by Luton, and this is the Imperium's 10 best jobs. This is actually something that I've been kind of pretty curious and interested about. Is you know, the various, I guess, I'm assuming the video is going to go over like everyday jobs that, you know, the backbone of, you know, the Imperium perform. You know, the regular laborers, regular people, whatever. So yeah, I guess we're gonna hop into that and see what these 10 best jobs are. Like I said, very curious about that. Updated some stuff in the membership area, so added some more perks and some more benefits throughout the membership tiers. So if you guys want to take a look at that, take a look at that. We're gonna do a community game night. Looking at Saturday, December 9th. Probably around like 5 p.m. Eastern time, and go for like, you know, 4 to 6 hours. We're gonna get together, play some Dark Tide. Got a link for my Discord down below in the description, so if you guys want to join, you know, feel free to. But yeah, anyway, let's just hop right on into it here. Yes, in the grip darkness of the future, there is only war. There is only bane. Molded by it. Consort with the heretic is to endanger one's purity. But to lie to an inquisitor is to forfeit your soul. Inquisitor of Faisal. The best Imperial jobs. Okay, so this is just the best Imperial jobs. This isn't just regular jobs, I would assume then.
While it's undoubtedly true that the world of the dark far future is one filled with horror, immorality and nightmarish perversion, it's also true that while many billions lead lives that are objectively unendurable, there are equally those who are gifted rare positions of privilege, luxury and highly rewarding lives of service.
Well, even so, like, there's plenty of worlds out there where there's just regular people living regular lives, from what I understand as well, too. There's a lot of worlds out there that have, you know, aren't affected by anything to do with, you know, the chaos, you know, demons and the warp, and have, you know, nothing to do with getting invaded by, you know, aliens of any kind of other species or anything like that, and they're just farm worlds, factory worlds, whatever, where, you know, normal people just live, and, you know, even space marines and stuff like that are held as like, you know, mythological beings almost. They've never even seen them potentially. So like, for as shitty as some, you know, parts of the universe are, and it's just nothing but war and death and fighting, there's equally, you know, I assume there's plenty of worlds out there that are probably pretty peaceful and everyone just lives normal lives.
Whilst the Imperium may demand loyalty, it's an unavoidable human trait that has existed forever, that given the opportunity, individuals will always seek the feathers to line their own nests. While some are heavily indoctrinated into the cult of the Imperium and live lives of pure service and abstinence, there are likely significantly more who live lives that are hedonistic, luxurious to excess, boundless freedoms, or how about just sheer raw power. Right. Again, as before, it's worth mentioning that often what I might designate as a job in the Imperium may or may not fall within our understanding of such a thing at this time.
It's like I forget what they're called. I don't know if it's part of the council or not, but the people that are supposed to interpret the supposed whisperings, you know, of the Emperor. Who knows if they're actually really interpreting them either properly, or they're actually obeying what the Emperor is saying. You know what I mean? Like, they're the ones at the very tippy top. They could just be saying, hey, you know, they could just be saying whatever. They could say the Emperor wants this, that, and the other thing, and it's just, that's what their ideals are of how they want to run things. You know? I still think it would be very interesting to see what would happen if the Emperor comes back. And how that would shake things up. I think there would end up being another civil war, probably is what would happen. There would be a lot of people that were in power that, of course, would probably be more than happy to turn that over to the Emperor. There are probably a lot of people who are in power that would not be willing to turn over what they have, and would resist, because obviously the emperor doesn't want anything to do with religion, and they turn him into a religious icon. So yeah, it would be very interesting to see.
The Imperium may or may not fall within our understanding of such a thing at this time. Often within the Imperium you're not actually paid, you might simply be assigned a duty through hereditary or just assignment, and you find that your life leads you down a certain path and a certain role to play. So what we might designate as job.
I could see that being pretty shitty too, where it's just like, you're a generational worker, like, that's all you're ever gonna know is this one specific task. That's what your father did, and your grandfather did, and your grandfather's grandfather did. And so, like, that's where you've been raised, and that's what you know, and that's just it. And there's no, I guess, necessary room for advancement. I mean, I guess there probably are certain opportunities in various ways. If you, like, somehow, you know, display some kind of abilities as a psyker, or some kind of extraordinary physical prowess, you might be, you know, up for potential recruit as an Astartes, or, you know, even more so as, you know, getting enlisted to the Imperial Guard or whatever.
Jobs are more roles in society to play, but it's much the same. You're working to stay alive and contribute to the overall structure of human society. As we look at the best jobs today, if you missed out on the worst ones, check the link at the end of this video.
Okay.
We're covering roles in this video with no
after.
constraint, but perhaps we can also look at more standard working class roles that do not include positions of excessive power in another video. And lastly, what would you like me to cover next in a best or worst rundown? Best weapons, worst deaths, best war machines? Tell me in the comments and maybe I can cover that one next.
Best and worst weapons would be interesting. I don't really know much about the weapons other than some of the iconic ones, like, you know, a bolter gun, chain swords, las guns, plasma rifles or whatever, or plasma cannon, whatever they're called, the big blue, you know, handguns that shoot like explosive plasma, you know, bullets or whatever. I think they're just like plasma guns. I think that's really about it. I don't really, like, you know much other than those, you know, those weapons. So yeah, that'd be interesting to hear more about.
So in no specific order, let's run down the best jobs within the Imperium of Man. Now, it's no surprise that we start with the role of the Inquisitor. There are a few roles less coveted than that of becoming an Inquisitor.
You basically
of the
have free
Imperial
reign
Inquisition.
as an Inquisitor,
For many,
right?
the simple reasons for this are twofold: freedom and power.
Yeah.
Inquisitors, unlike the majority of humans in the Imperium of Man, are free to pursue their own goals and missions, within the context of their role, of course, to protect and further the interests of humanity. The Inquisition at its current existent state is a massive organization in the Imperium, answerable to no one other than...
Pause it here. Sometimes when I'm hitting like pause and stuff on the keyboard, it doesn't work. I don't know. Anyway, a question that I would have is, I think I know the answer to this, but are there any, like, Inquisitors that are also, like, governors? They're in positions of political power? Because, you know, like, in Roman times, they would have, you know, generals would also potentially have a seat in the Senate and stuff like that. So is there anything like that where, like, Inquisitors might have certain positions of political power? I would assume so, but at the same time, I could also see them, because they are Inquisitors and because their role is so demanding on them, you know, not having that, or maybe just because also that would be too much power for certain individuals to have, having a say in government while also being an Inquisitor. Because, I mean, you know, think about that. If, you know, you have a political rival and, you're an Inquisitor, you could always just like, you know, heresy, he's a heretic, burn him, blah, blah, blah. You know, you could do stuff like that, and you could just eliminate political rivals so you could get more power. But, I mean, that could also be the case where things like that happen. So, I mean, yeah, let me know if there's any, like, political status, whatever, with Inquisitors.
It is a massive organization in the Imperium, answerable to no one other than the Emperor and themselves. They reign as terrifying figures to most of the rest of humanity. Take your pick of the 3 Ordos as well as to which to best participate in. The Ordo Malleus deals with eradicating demons and the servants of chaos, basically hunting the corrupted, and they're also backed militarily by the Grey Knights. Not a bad team to call for backup.
True.
The Ordo Xenos are not purely focused on slaughtering the oddities of the galaxy, they also spend time investigating, cataloguing, exploring if you will, to better understand where and when humanity may want to lay down swathes of purging fire. They may spend decades travelling and recording what they discover, and they often have solid bonds and connections with rogue traders. The Ordo Xenos, similarly to the Ordo Malleus with its Grey Knights, gets to call upon the Astartes of the Death Watch, a force formed entirely of veteran Space Marines. Finally, the Ordo Hereticus. Often these Inquisitors are those that people lean toward, choosing them because they are the witch hunters, and rightfully they're feared by the heretics of humanity. They hunt down rogue psychers, mutants of mankind, and those who would speak heresy toward the Imperium and the Emperor. Speaking out of turn, heresy. Spilled my beer? You better know that's some heresy. And as per the previous choice, yes, they are backed not only by the Adeptus Astartes, but also the Adeptus Sororitas. That is the all-female, militant wing of the Imperial cult's ecclesiarchy. So if being able to walk around the worlds of the Imperium indiscriminately killing those who might look at you the wrong way doesn't appeal in and of itself, you also get to be backed up by an entourage of badass, bolter-wielding ladies.
Another question I guess I'd have, are Inquisitors allowed to have families? Because I feel like someone who's in a position of power like that, if they get compromised, their families get taken hostage or whatever, and they get blackmailed to do certain things, that would obviously be a big problem. So I'm curious, is that a situation that happens frequently in the Imperium, where some of these higher ups, you know, they have those issues happen, like things like that?
Inquisition are, as an organisation and individuals, exempt from scrutiny, other than by the Emperor himself and, as I say, themselves. Inquisitors can demand whatever they need at any time, be it materials, citizens, manpower, and hardware. In essence, an Inquisitor's power is absolute. They deal out individual death
I mean, they can
or planetary scale annihilation.
You know, planetary
Inquisition is a vast organisation, and it's difficult to really summarise in short order the level of complexity within its own ranks, let alone its operations within the Imperium. The Inquisition is even known to have factional wars within itself from time to time, as it answers only to itself, and so must fight for its philosophies and fanatical points of principle. These rarely will last for any significant length of time, and if they risk spilling out beyond a localized area, they will usually be crushed by a heavy force of Astartes to restore order by any means necessary, at the behest of yet more inquisitional commands. This gives a small sense of how complex and difficult to constrain Inquisitors' power can be, as they individually can wield huge influence in an Imperial system. Why is the role of an Inquisitor one of the best jobs in the Imperium? The answer is the sheer power you hold individually.
Yeah.
Now, Imperial Noble was always going to make the cut for the best jobs in the Imperium. They are, as you might expect, the elite civilians of Imperial worlds, and the nobility contain lords and ruling families of major hive cities, planets and star systems. Having power and command over many millions, if not many billions of human lives, you find yourself born into such nobility, then you've already hit the jackpot in terms of potential lives to live.
Talk about the
You'll be
genetic
raised
lottery.
in safety and luxury, disconnected and likely ignorant of the suffering and abhorrent conditions the billions of fellow humans endure below your heavily protected living quarters. A life disconnected from the grim realities known to the majority of individuals within the Imperium, yet it's not a life without
she's
risks.
about to cut that dude's
Human
hand
desire
off.
knows no bounds, and murderous ambition and
Dude in the front there's like, "Milady," and she's like, "Bitch, I'm gonna cut that hand right off. Better watch out."
vicious feuds can continue for centuries between families. Many highborn will likely never leave their luxurious palaces, protected from the horrors of the outside world and the citizenry who are best off not knowing what they're missing out on. Highborn citizens of the Imperium are seen, but perhaps only by the nobility itself, as the pinnacle of human bloodlines, representing the greatest and most carefully refined family lineage. As is often the case when it comes to such self-celebrating aristocracy, for the few individuals who are genuinely enlightened or have something positive to contribute, far more of these noble family heirs are self-obsessed, idle, and prone to debasing themselves, often living lives that walk a very dangerous line between indulgence and heresy. Highborn also, among their privileges, are significantly educated about the lives that they live, the power and politics, the general understandings of the Imperium, and how it's best to avoid its significantly dangerous pitfalls. For some Highborn, it's a life of ignorance and lavish luxury. For others, their careful education and focused ambition can lead them to become agents of the Inquisition. How much of that is down to loyalty for the Imperium or carefully planned personal ambition is entirely debatable. Being a Highborn, though, is not only about wallowing in self-satisfaction. There is work to be done, albeit entirely self-serving. You must protect the interests of the family name, and more importantly, try to better them. It's a never-ending game of carefully planned subterfuge to undermine and steal power from others who need to be taken down a few positions and allow your family a tighter grip on regional power systems.
Right. All while still, doing things that are supposedly to the benefit of the Empire.
Blackmail, scandals, treachery, and carefully premeditated murder are all day to day. It's a life of dangerous mind games, murder mystery, political power games, and decadent luxury.
Game of Clue,
Despite the dangers, it's without question far preferable to eating slop every day, working to exhaustion, and then dying of some unpleasant industrial contamination.
Little Warhammer 40k, themed clue. It was Colonel Mustard in the Inquisinatus, with the bolter. I don't know. I'm just spitting off random shit.
Working to exhaustion and then dying of some unpleasant industrial contamination. The Adeptus Custodes. Now, assuming the endless popular suggestion for best jobs in the...
Oh, fuck. Excuse me. I don't know what it is lately, but doing videos, I just, as soon as I start doing videos, I just start yawning. I don't know what the fucking... I don't know what it is. I need to, need more coffee or something. Anyway, I feel like it would be awesome to be Custodes, but it'd also be super boring. Because I from what I understand of them so far, the majority of their duty in life, I mean, their whole purpose is, the personal guards of the Emperor. So, they're protecting the Golden Throne. So, they sit there for hundreds of hours, if not longer, even, hundreds of years, potentially, I believe. They just stand, at their posts, and that's all they do. They just sit there, good lord.
Imperium, yet somewhat debatable when you really think about it. Overall, though, I still think it's a good candidate, objectively speaking. Why do the Custodes come up so regularly when people think of perfect roles to play as part of the Imperium? Well, for one, the honour of serving so close to the Emperor.
Right.
The Custodes are the personal bodyguard to the Emperor of Man himself, warriors of unmatched capability and whose sole purpose is to counter any potential threat to the Master of Mankind. Back in the days of the Unification Wars and the Great Crusade, the Custodes would follow the Emperor everywhere. Now, as he is interred on the Golden Throne on Holy Terror, they rarely leave the planet, taking a far less active role than they once did in the Imperium. And while their tedious daily lives may seem mind-numbing to some, they have seen renewed life as the Ultramarines Primarch has returned to lead humanity. And so it is that the Custodes' days of confinement to Terror over so many years has come to an end, and they reach out with white-hot vengeance to destroy the dark forces of chaos. They stand near-immortal warriors, the Emperor's finest gene-crafted warriors. Their dexterity and ability far beyond that of even ordinary Astartes, their minds powerfully refined and fortified, their education extensively studied in all matters. For they exist to not only be powerful defenders, but to serve as companions and counsel for the Emperor himself. They reach out now more proactively than...
I didn't know there were also counselors to the Emperor, but that would make sense.
And counsel for the Emperor himself. They reach out now more proactively than ever, fighting as some of the most supremely powerful warriors that exist within the Imperium, retaining the honour that the blood of the Emperor runs through their veins. They are the golden light of the Emperor himself, his manifested spirit, and only surpassed in ability by the Primarchs and the Emperor himself. To be a Custodes is to be the pinnacle of human design. Their task of defending against the darkness may be challenging, but to stand individually as one of the most powerful and advanced forms of humanity ever created, beings of godlike strength and mental dexterity compared to your average human, bearing ornate crafted armor and weapons, and who is said to have been genetically individually crafted by the Emperor himself, there can be little dispute that the position of a custodes is greatly revered. Rogue traders are an obvious idolized role within the Imperium of Man, where much of humanity leads assigned lives of extremely limited personal choice. Rogue traders lead lives that are entirely the opposite.
Like
lives of exploration and adventure and self-determination. They're able to travel wherever they feel is worthwhile, dreaming and speculating for the betterment of mankind, but also for themselves. Rogue traders lead a life that many can only dream of. Successful rogue traders will also have close-knit teams of specialists around them, experts in diplomacy, exploration, and combat. These individuals, though, unlike others related through their likely noble...
I could see that being a pretty dope concept for a TV show. I don't know if anyone's seen the old Firefly TV show or Serenity. I really liked it back in the day. But I could see them essentially taking that kind of concept and putting it into the 40K universe. You know, but instead of it being kind of more of a Western, I mean, I guess they could keep kind of the Western overtones of the show, but that kind of concept put in the 40K universe with, you know, rogue traders going down from world to world, trading and maybe smuggling certain things, you know, maybe doing some kind of exploration. They're hired for various jobs, you know, mercenaries almost, going around, you know, the universe, just doing various jobs and exploring and, you know, maybe protecting people, being bodyguards, you know, whatever. I feel like that would be a pretty dope concept for a TV show. Give them a check.
Family ties will be well educated with a strong sense of instinct and cunning, skilled merchants, potentially pirates, and most certainly opportunistic. Rogue traders are truly exceptional individuals, and it's easy to romanticize rogue traders as they rattle on through the void in their customized and potentially Xenos-adapted ships. Some rogue traders even end up feeling so disconnected from the Imperium that they end up feeling no strong ties with it, and they walk a very thin line between loyalty and heresy. The truest appeal to take on the role of a rogue trader, though, is the freedom of exploration and trade that it represents.
I bet,
You're not tied to a specific world, nor are you beholden to oaths of duty and service to the Emperor. You're not going to be sent out on orders back to back from one place to another, dealing with situations and entities that would be enough to destroy the minds of many ordinary citizens. As a rogue trader, you lead a difficult life, but a life where the challenges become their own rewards. Adventure, glory, and riches await the smartest and most capable of rogue traders, and for any who are able to locate the rarest of the rare lost STC templates, eternal glory in the Imperium awaits you.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now initially I was considering not to include a high administrator in the best jobs list because I considered it to be too close to a planetary governor or a noble. However, it does differ and certainly sits as one of the more cushy jobs available to individuals in the darkness of the far future. Essentially, you would take on the role of a high-ranking bureaucrat, and this is beneficial to you for multiple reasons. One being the scale of the administratum. Even as a senior staff member within its vast sub-departments would allow you to fade into a state of greyness. And this is likely one of the safest positions to occupy within the Imperium. Not being as visible and therefore open to conspirators as a...
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, having a position where, like, you have power, but you, like, blend in with everyone else would probably be, like, the best place to be in the Imperium. Because you have station, you have power, you have a say in how certain things work. You're not in a life where you're dealing with struggle and issues. You're not on the front lines fighting or whatever. But you're also blend into the background, so you're not under a lens. And you're not in a position of, like, overwhelming power where people just constantly are looking at you. So, yeah, I was going to say, I feel like this would be, like, the good middle ground of, like, what a perfect life would probably be in the Imperium.
Within the Imperium. Not being as visible and therefore open to conspirators as a noble, not being so dispensable as an ordinary pleb citizen who nobody is going to miss. you also are a vital cog in the mechanisms that keep the Imperium operating. While you are replaceable, it's going to be in the interests of all to limit how frequently that occurs and risk bureaucratic chaos. Lastly is the ability to remain out of sight and out of mind. Even the head of the Administratum at this stage can probably only make a rough estimate of the actual number of divisions that exist inside the apparatus of the Administratum, so the likelihood of you being able to live by any standards a comfortable existence with few threats toward you is significantly better than most individuals in the Imperium at the top and bottom of the pile. While your life may not be as lush and luxurious as that of a noble, occupying a high-ranking position is certainly going to accommodate you with comfortable surroundings, and that coupled with the relative safety and anonymity that being a single individual in such a colossal bureaucratic system is arguably still preferable to running the constant risk of having your throat cut unceremoniously in the middle of the night by your father's sister's cousin's son.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's just like that kind of perfect middle ground of having some responsibility, but not enough to where you have everyone's eye watching you and vying for your position. But at the same time, you're not struggling, you know. You probably have, you know, better food, better, you know, housing and living conditions than, you know, the absolute average human being does.
Now, a Titan Princeps. A return to a role where you get to basically enact vast scales of ruination on the enemies of man. A Titan Princeps, again, while not necessarily the most comfortable of roles, is going to be one many would imagine has its fair share of significant positives. But still, I'm sure some of you are wondering, what is a Titan Princeps? Well, it is a senior officer who commands the world-ending scale of war machines that are known as Titans. And this is something I'll have to cover in a lot more detail later, but essentially a Princeps is a human individual with immense willpower. And this is required because they are ordered to operate a Titan, the massive war machines that tower over battlefields, tower over cities. The Princeps must mentally interface with the machine itself and be able to control the Titan's incredibly powerful machine spirit.
So I'm curious, are the people that interface with these machines, is that like something where once they're in there, that's just it? They're like basically fused with the machine and that's their life? Or are they able to get out of these things when they're not actually like fighting you know, out in a war, you know, and be like a normal person for a little while? From what I understand, I think from once they're in the machine, that's it, they're part of the machine. But let me know if that's the case or not.
And be able to control the Titan's incredibly powerful machine spirit. It is rare for humans to exhibit the strengths necessary, and those individuals are exceedingly rare, as low as 1 in 10 million. For this reason, you as an individual are as near to indispensable as any individual in the Imperium. You'll be heavily guarded, and if your vast war machine were to be disabled in battle, no resource would be spared to recover you. One of the very few situations where the Imperium cares significantly about an individual human life. Operating a Titan is also highly addicting. For perhaps obvious reasons, the Princeps will feel the Titan as if it were their own body.
And that kind of power, just in general, being essentially, you fuse with it, you know, to an extent. And so, like, I don't know how, like, sensory perception and stuff like that would work, but, like, just the idea of, like, commanding this giant war mech and just annihilating, you know, untold numbers of your enemies with relative ease. Yeah, I would assume that sense of power would be pretty exhilarating, you know?
Perhaps obvious reasons, the Princeps will feel the Titan as if it were their own body. They will feel as if they themselves are this staggeringly dominating war machine of godlike power. This intense, overpowering addiction can often lead Princeps to spiral down into madness as their mind is too heavily strained and they fight against the spirit of the machine itself.
So they end up going into a form of psychosis. Interesting.
Princeps do not individually operate a Titan. The task is far too difficult for one person alone.
So it's kind of like Pacific Rim. The Pacific Rim movies are some of my I love kaiju movies and stuff like that. So that's kind of like I grew up watching Godzilla and you know, Pacific Rim's kind of a guilty pleasure. I really enjoy those movies. The first one was really good. The second one was okay, and then the actual I enjoyed the anime on Netflix. But anyway, so yeah, it's kind of like a Pacific Rim situation where the I guess the neural load would be too much for one individual to handle moving the machine, or maybe there's just that many moving parts that they gotta, you know, split up the work detail, the workload.
Do not individually operate a Titan. The task is far too difficult for one person alone, and will have a team of juniors known as Moderati who assist in other operations and coordinations required to run the Titan. A Princeps, though, is a rare gifted role to play for the Imperium, heavily immersive and symbiotic as the war engine's machine spirit learns from the...
So it seems like you're able to get it out of that as you need then. You're not actually like fused in it, and once you're in there, that's it. Okay. So, I mean, yeah, if you could control one of those things and not have a psychotic break, and that would be a very, yeah, that would be a pretty awesome position to have, being able to command and pilot one of those giant mechs.
Imperium, heavily immersive and symbiotic as the war engine's machine spirit learns from the Princeps, and the Princeps from the previously stored memories and experiences of the Titan. It is a position few could ever imagine having the opportunity.
So isn't like the machine spirit basically just kind of like the onboard AI? Am I mistaken? Or is that like, isn't that one of the ironies, I guess, of some of these things, is that it may not be like a full-blown sentient AI, but you know, it has like a computer-based system on there that is essentially kind of like an AI or whatever, that is able to learn certain things, and like it's saying, anticipate the maneuvers of the pilot to help essentially up combat effectiveness. That's what I was looking for. Yeah, let me know about that if that's the case or not.
And experiences of the Titan. It is a position few could ever imagine having the opportunity to be designated as a commander and operator of one of the most powerful weapons the Imperium holds. To rain down prophetic fury and devastation against the enemies of man with impunity as you look down with powerful superiority upon the ant-like figures that you are crushing, rending, tearing, and exterminating with fire. The fools who would stand against the might, power, and irresistible force of the Imperium of Man. Now, a planetary governor or lord is another position of supreme power that offers those lucky enough to hold the position lives that few could dream of.
Isn't some nobility basically that, like planetary governors? I thought that's how it worked. I thought a lot of the planetary governors were run by like specific families. You know, like each like specific noble family had its own planet or series of planets that they governed. I guess I'm, you know, mistaken about that, but that's what I thought. That's what the case was. So, being a noble and a planetary governor, I thought they were basically kind of the same thing.
That offers those lucky enough to hold the position lives that few could dream of. A governor is a political leader, although not elected, obviously, within the Imperium of Man, and they're also considered an imperial commander when it comes to military decisions. Similarly to other roles in either the administratum or nobility, a planetary governor is often a hereditary position, and I think it's safe to understand why somebody long ago decided that that was a good idea, and it certainly wasn't in the interests of ensuring the right person for the right job. Governors of important worlds within a system may also extend their powers as sector or even segmentum governors. This is to ensure smooth order and running of imperial systems, as the Imperium itself is far too large to be run by a more centralized system. The benefits of being a governor are that while technically you answer to the Adeptus Terra and the Lord Commander of the Imperium, you are essentially completely independent and can run your planet and sector however you deem appropriate. Quite literally, the world is your oyster. You do of course have to adhere to delivering your quotas for the Imperial tithe, but as most of your world systems are fairly entrenched and autonomous, this shouldn't be a heavy concern. If you were able to choose, which you wouldn't because the positions are hereditary, but any number of world types exist, and all would hold their own specific benefits to you as a governor. The top of the pile likely being governor of a garden or paradise planet, and yes, these are a thing, believe it or not.
Yeah, I would assume so. Because, I mean, everyone needs a place to go to for vacation, right? But they also need to, have planets that are specifically geared towards, you know, growing life. So they could probably A, take a lot of that life to seed other worlds, but also B, for food in general. I mean, I'm sure there's specific farming worlds, but um I would, again, I would assume, nobility and stuff like that would want things a little more exotic than what the average human being is going to eat.
Being governor of a garden or paradise planet. And yes, these are a thing, believe it or not, in the Imperium. They are worlds of staggering natural beauty, highly cultured places with massive, luxurious restaurants, dancing rooms, maybe even some form of casino for the nobility to enjoy, as well as any number of associated pleasurable activities. Use your imagination. To be a governor of such a world is just about as idealistic a role as you could hope to have.
Now, I guess another question that I would have, and I'd be interested in knowing, and maybe there are some videos out there about that, but like, I don't know how to word it or put it, but I guess what are the lines when it comes to like what people are able to do for not necessarily like sexual things or anything like that. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase it, but I guess not necessarily hobbies or vacations, but I guess just, yeah, like what are the lines of like what's legal that people can do to let off steam and what's not, I guess. You know what I mean? Like obviously murder and stuff like that, but like I don't know how I want to word it. Like I'm trying to think of like what would be considered like the line between heresy and like legal pleasure, I guess, is the way I'm trying to phrase it, Like, because obviously, like, there might be certain drugs that are legal and maybe not legal. I don't know how any of that works in the 40K universe. And what, because everyone needs a vacation. Everyone, especially in a universe as stressful as this, at some point in time, people are going to need to take breaks and have downtime and off time. And obviously, it sounds like they have specific worlds set up for that. But I'm just wondering, like, where's the line between like I said, what would be considered like legal and okay versus like hedonistic and heretical, especially knowing. At least I would assume that humans and the governing people would know, how far the Eldar took things and those consequences. I guess that's kind of what I'm looking for is like, yeah, what is the line between those things? Because obviously if things get taken too far, people could, start to be, susceptible to maybe, chaos demons and corruption of certain ways. Obviously, Slaanesha's pull and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess that's one of the questions is like, where's the line drawn on things like that? So if there's any kind of, I guess, videos or content or anything like that I can look up on those things, let me know, because I would be interested in learning more about that too.
Other planets that could be enjoyable are, yes, feudal worlds, because they're fairly idyllic in one sense, simple people leading simple lives, or industrialized worlds that are not too far from the 21st century on Earth. These are a thing as well in the future. Even hive planets, because while hives for the lower human drones are an intolerably cruel existence, for those at the top of the pile it's quite a different matter. They will have access to just about every luxury you can think of when it comes to urban living. As a governor you have, as with other roles, immense power, and through this power opens up to you a lifestyle that is simply unimaginable to many Imperial citizens. Now, Imperial Guard Commissars. I wanted to include at least one position here from the Imperial Guard because, despite their reputation as Operation Human Shield, there are certainly some positions and roles that could be appealing to some who want to lead a life of military service for the Imperium, crushing its enemies under the weight of Baneblade justice and dealing out furious retribution to heretics. An Imperial Guard Commissar covers various levels of ranking, from default Commissar to Lord and Commissar General. While certainly not the easiest job by any means, a commissar is an individual with influence, significant respect and power within his regiment or PDF force. A commissar is essentially a senior commander, empowered by the Imperium to use any means to ensure loyalty and morale of troops, and to achieve objectives whatever the cost. A commissar will be feared by some, revered by others, often inspiring his troops to leap into battles and take on objectives far beyond
like the
sense
generals,
and
the
reason,
admirals
and
of the
often facing
military,
down and
the
succeeding
Imperial Guard
with
or
what
whatever.
appeared to be impossible odds. Commissars are for some a very appealing role because of the supremely uncompromising nature of the commissar. They are immovable bastions of imperial will. They will execute their own officers and sergeants just as readily as individual guardsmen if they feel it's warranted. They're certainly not adverse to getting involved in actual combat to make sure things start moving forward and are a success. To me, I often feel that it is this which exemplifies what it means to be a commissar, that if you want something done right, you do it yourself. This attitude is what I think is most appealing as a commissar role, to lead by brutal example and expect nothing of your guardsmen that you are not willing to do yourself. And given the significant amount of power struggles, backstabbing and hypocrisy that exists in the Imperium, the role of the commissar is certainly refreshingly honest, and one which in its honesty is appealing as a straight, no bullshit position to play for the Imperium of Man. Imperial citizens. Okay, now hear me out on this. I know this is a bit vague, and I actually hate myself somewhat for putting in something so vague, but what I wanted to include here is that
Yeah, Imperial citizens would cover like a whole swath of like range. I could be from like the lowest grunt. I mean, aren't servitors like considered still Imperial citizens? And like a life of a servitor would be awful in my opinion, dude. Like just being a mindless drone, like stuck in a husk. You know, you're just your body. You've been lobotomized. You're just a mindless drone that does what you're told. That's your existence. You have basically no free will, no concept of self as far as I know. Like, yeah, that would be awful.
for all the nightmarish horror and disgusting waste of life that exists in the Imperium, there are also plenty of mid-level roles or planets that do not suffer the same intolerable conditions that others endure. And these lifestyles apply to many roles that you couldn't simply assign to one job. The extremes that we often discuss in the darkness of the far future are always the forefront of what is presented in our view of the Imperium, because so much of it concerns military matters or planets which serve to supply military necessities for the Imperium's forces. However, there are plenty of planets like the previously mentioned Garden or Paradise worlds where the conditions are far from nightmarish. I think that there would be few of us who wouldn't mind being, say, a gardener on a paradise world, or an inventive bartender serving their nobility, an events planner for noble feasts and events, or how about any number of roles on Earth-like industrialized planets not vastly different from our lives today, even feudal worlds with their obviously base level of technology and susceptibility to health issues, but still would lead peaceful lives, arguably idealistic in many ways. On the Hive and more Imperial headquartered planets as well, it's not all bad. There are plenty of mid or mid-senior roles of administration and command that, objectively speaking, are far from miserable and soul-destroying and even relatively comfortable. So this was quite a generalised and vague choice, so I apologise for that, but I feel it was worth noting that there are plenty of ordinary jobs that would be very preferable, even desirable by many, people who are probably leading lives of simple pleasure without the pressure and the threat of being dragged kicking and screaming from your position of power by an inquisitor who suspected that you were getting too big for your boots. Now lastly, yes, Astartes. I know this one will be debatable, and so I say debate away in the comments. I think personally though, how can an Astartes not be one of the best jobs to have in the Imperium of Man? Yeah.
I mean, it's a job that would be revered. You'd be looked up to by however many, millions of people. And I mean, you're basically changed into almost the pinnacle of what human current evolution would be. You would be a near indestructible machine of war. But I mean, that's also all your life would be for potentially hundreds, maybe even thousands of years. There was a video I watched recently, I think, where some of the lives they said of Astartes could be 10,000. They've lived for like 10,000 years. Like, and all you do is just fight. I mean, and your brain, I believe, is also like augmented in ways. So like you're not even necessarily, you probably really even couldn't be considered actually human anymore. Like the way you would think and feel would be completely different than what the average human would, what we would think and feel. So I mean, I guess it would also be like, it could be questioned, or it could be hypothesized that, undergoing the transformation of becoming Astartes, you're no longer the same person you were when you were born, both physically and in your mind, because of all the various alterations, and how you think and how you feel. And then of course also the training, the insane training that you would go through if you make it to mold you into this living weapon. So like, it really would be your perspective, I guess, on, would you consider that to be one of the top things? Would you want to be this, virtually unkillable machine of war, and that's all you know, and that's all you probably will ever know? Maybe the odds are extremely against you, but maybe you make it to a point where, humanity can find peace in the universe. But more than likely, all you're going to do is just kill, and eventually you're going to die some kind of gruesome death, assuming you don't get, like, taken over by some kind of chaos demon and corrupted. So, like, that I really guess it's up to perspective on what you'd want to do. Untold glory, but guaranteed, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to die some kind of horrible, horrific way. Untold glory, terrible, horrific death. With little chance of, like, making it through anything, live in the end. And who knows what, even if, let's say, humanity comes to a peaceful resolution with the various things out there, and war in the galaxy stops, and there's a golden age of peace throughout the galaxy. Who says you'll even be able to reform or conform to what would be considered a normal life, So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of different perspectives and debates on whether or not you could say that being an Astartes would be one of the best jobs to have in the Imperium.
Yes, you face horrors and hardships, but those are prevalent throughout the Imperium. So if you're going to have a life of challenges, why not do it with some style? Genetically modified superhuman soldiers, the Emperor's bulwark against the horrors of the future, godlike figures to your ordinary human citizen who would literally worship the ground you walk upon. You instill fear and submission to all those soft and lazy nobles and governors who have maybe forgotten their comfortable lives exist at the pleasure of the Emperor. It's true that Astartes, the Space Marines, serve humanity, not to rule it. Yet at the same time, in the darkest, most recent days for the Imperium, under the leadership of the Ultramarines Primarch, returned now as Lord Commander of the Imperium, the Astartes maintain their role as mankind's legendary and premier fighting force. Yes, there are those who wield niche, excessive power, like the Custodes or the Grey Knights, but these specialist units are highly specific. The role of an Imperial Space Marine, each chapter with their millennia of history and unbreakable brotherhood, is one of the most appealing roles you could hope to take on. To serve the Emperor as one of his finest warriors, to destroy, purge, exterminate, and bring down vengeance upon the enemies of mankind. Powerful advanced weapons at your disposal, backed up by chapter brothers, each one an expert and fiercely loyal fighter in the name of the Emperor. There can be little finer opportunity than to serve the Emperor as one of his multi-role expert fighters who are truly the most iconic figures that exist in the Imperium of mankind. I'll finish today by saying, as per usual, thanks for enjoying, participating and supporting me and the channel, guys. If you enjoyed, please tell me what you think down below. If you have an idea for the next best and worst, or perhaps just a rundown of something like most violent creatures, maybe even Worst Jobs Part 2, tell me down below. I got a lot of ideas going into this year, not only 40k, and I hope you're going to enjoy these as and when I get them up on the channel. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.
Okay. This is where the elite of the Imperium have gathered, and they have come to realize their ambitions, and on Terra they will not let anything stand in the way. They will not let anything stand in their way, not me, not you, not their own kin if need be. Torn Wolfbane, the House of Astartes. Okay. Good video. Good video. I mean, I guess we'll start off with kind of like the Astartes. You know, my opinion on the Astartes would be like, if I'm going to be a soldier, like if I'm going to be a soldier, if I know it, that's just it. If I'm going to be a cog in the great war machine of the Imperium, I would want to be an Astartes. Like, because why not? Why not be like human perfection killing machine? Why not, dude? If you could go through all the trials and do all, like, I wouldn't even care about, you know, being looked at or worshipped as a demigod or whatever. It's just, if I'm gonna be a soldier, like, let me be the best possible soldier possible. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, and I would want to if I'm gonna be serving the Empire and I'm gonna be fighting, just I would want to be the best that you can be. So, like, if I were to be able to be recruited, you know, into the Astartes, you know, legions, I would absolutely, that would be my choice as far as that goes. But if I had to pick a job out of all of those things, I mean, obviously the nobility stuff would be like the cushiest. A high noble just being born and to basically just have a life like any kind of nobility that has already existed, where you don't necessarily have to really worry about anything. You'd have, you know, potentially the best education that you could possibly get. You'd have any kind of privilege under the sun. You could pretty much do whatever you wanted to do, within obviously certain laws and guidelines, and, you know, as long as you're not starting anything, you know, that would maybe gain the eye of the Inquisitors, whatever. I don't know why I said Inquisinatus. Gain the eye of the Inquisitors or anything like that, then yeah, you just live as luxurious and opulent a life as possible. So, I mean, I kind of like throw that out the window because that's an easy one to pick from. But other than, you know, like I said, if I'm going to be a soldier, I'd want to be an Astartes. But out of everything else, I mean, obviously piloting one of the Titans would be pretty sick. You know, having that kind of power at your fingertips and just piloting one of those war machines, I mean, that would just be dope. That would be awesome. I wanted to be an Apache pilot, actually, in high school. So, I mean, being able to pilot kind of a mech like that would just be dope. That'd be awesome. But beyond that, I would probably like either, I forget what the job specifically was. It's not the planetary governor job. But the job that I was talking about, that's like that perfect in between of, you have enough responsibility to where you're important, and you have like somewhat of a power and say as to what certain things happen, but at the same time you still kind of blend in with the crowd, and you don't have to necessarily worry about a lot of the higher up powers like really focusing on you and what you're doing in your life and micromanaging you. It would be probably between that or being on one of like the off like farm worlds or something like that, either one of the feudal worlds or one of the normal industrial worlds like we have, you know, which is like equivalent to what we essentially have now, like just having a normal life like that. It would be between that if I had to pick to being like a normal person, you know. I mean, obviously being an Inquisitor would be pretty sick too. Being an Inquisitor and having like basically ultimate power and saying everything would be pretty sick, but honestly, if I'm gonna be kind of a fighter on those kind of lines of things like that, I think I would rather be an Astartes. You know, if I had the ultimate choice and I knew I was going to make it either be an Inquisitor or an Astartes, I'd rather be an Astartes. Like I said, if I'm gonna be a soldier and I'm gonna be out there fighting and killing things and putting my life on the line, you know, make me the best killing machine possible. Turn me into, you know, just this ultimate weapon of destruction that is, you know, a space marine, and just turn me loose, you know, and just let me go out there and fight and die for the Emperor's glory. You know what I mean? So, but good video. He said he had, yeah, there's this 10 worst jobs. We'll probably look into that next too. Because obviously we did 10 best jobs, so we'll look at 10 worst jobs. So that'll probably be one of the ones that I'll look at next. It's also, I want to look at the Grey Knights, and there's a bunch of other requests. I've got a, like, kind of a log that I'm keeping of requests of videos that people have, so I will be going through and getting through them. And then there's still content from other things that I want to do. I've got, you know, some movie and game reviews I want to do that I just haven't gotten around to actually sitting down and been able to do yet. Yeah, so I'm gonna get those eventually out and up on the channel here. And like I said earlier, we're looking at doing a community game night, potentially right now on Saturday, December 9th. As long as nothing else comes up, that's what I'm gonna plan on doing. So for those interested, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to have, you know, a game night in Darktide, and I'll do my best to get as many people in that can play as possible. And like I said, you're welcome to join my Discord. The link is down below in the info section, and you guys can feel free to use my Discord to, you know, just use it to hang out and, you know, play games with each other. You know, that's what it's there for. It's a community Discord, so it's set up for everyone to use. Feel free to go in there and use it. And then, yeah, like I said earlier at the beginning of this video as well, I also updated the membership tiers and added some more benefits to a lot of the tiers. So check that out if you have a minute. And if you have any other feedback on that, you know, let me know. But if you guys are still watching here at the end of the video, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very, very much for watching the videos and hanging out, and for all the support lately, guys. It's been wonderful. Growth has been pretty insane the last few weeks. And yeah, thank you always just seems inadequate to me in these kind of situations. Like, you know, I'm just the dude that's just sitting here chilling, you know, watching videos and giving my opinions on stuff. And it's cool seeing all you guys' comments and answering my questions and all the information you guys are giving. And I'm just really enjoying, you know, diving deep into this, you know, 40K universe. So yeah, thank you guys again very much. If you did enjoy this video, consider leaving a like and a sub, as it helps me out, helps the channel grow. And yeah, I hope you guys are having a wonderful day wherever you are and whenever you're watching this. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.